to Upstage Downstage with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Kathy and Stella Solve a Murder. We saw this new musical at the Ambassadors Theatre in London on the 8th of June 2024. After sellout runs in Manchester, Bristol and Edinburgh, this musical from John Britton and Matthew Floyd-Jones is co-directed by Fabian Elise and is produced by the multi-Olivier Award winners behind Fleabag, Baby Reindeer and The 39 Steps. So Stephen, what's it all about?
BFFs Kathy and Stella host Hull's least successful true crime podcast. When their favourite author is killed, they are thrust into a thrilling whodunit of their own. Hailed as comedy gold, this big-hearted, laugh-out-loud musical follows the unlikely crime-fighting duo as they put their friendship on the line to become part of the story. Can they crack the case and become the global podcast superstars before the killer strikes again?
But first, our post-show opinion!
It was a magnificent murderous musical.
Masterpiece in musical theatre.
So, with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
Right then, so Kathy and Stella Solve a Murder, a new comedy musical.
They've solved a murder?
They're going to be solving a murder in this new comedy musical.
Sorry, what was it?
A new comedy musical.
Oh, I've got it now.
But it was Kathy and Stella that solve a murder. In this new comedy musical.
But they solved a murder?
In this new comedy musical. Whilst you're listening, if you're still with us, please like, share and subscribe to our whatever we have over there. Out there.
Who is she?
Whatever. Because we need more subscribers. I believe. Isn't that right?
Well, we want the approval of strangers. What can I say?
Indeed. Yes. Right, let's start off with this one. So, set the scene, Richard, for Kathy and Stella Solve a Murder. A new musical comedy. Oh, I got it the wrong way around this time. Well, I'm not doing it again.
You tried.
Very trying times. Right then, set the scene.
Okay, so we sat down in the Ambassadors Theatre in London, and I felt like we'd gone into a basement. Really, we were
It was very much like a warehouse basement.
Yeah,
wasn't
it felt like a warehouse. Lots of scaffolding round. There was basically the stage was very bare, very sparse. There was a big sign just saying Kathy and Stella with hazard tape around it. But behind that there was what looked like rough wood panelled boxes, a big board at the back on corrugated iron, and it basically was just.
Well, it had the workstations, didn't it,
Yeah.
on either side?
Yeah, on both sides there was the band that were above those workstations as well, that were basically sitting on scaffolding units, really, because
just
the whole
nestled
thing
into
was
the
just,
side, so
yeah,
you couldn't really see them.
It was just, all you could see though was the equipment and things lingering around the sides of the stage. So it showed that these workstations that Stephen just mentioned, they got loads of shelves in, they got loads of bits of props, and everything on stage had a purpose, but it all looked very haphazard and just put there like it had been put in a warehouse underground or whatever, just to give it somewhere to be, really. So that's really the set in a nutshell. There's quite a lot of lighting around, but other than that, that's it.
Yeah. And then bit by bit throughout the play, things kept being added on or moved about and changed around. So
yeah.
There wasn't much more we can say other than the play starts with Kathy and Stella coming in, but they come in on swirly chairs, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they're going to start this podcast, and then they grab the mic, which is just on the stand, and then they sort of set the scene up as to who they're talking about. It begins with the author, I believe it was Felicia Taylor, and how they wanted to go and speak to her or interview her for their podcast about these murders that she was trying to get, that she was uncovering herself, this famous person, because she'd wrote a book. And then when they went to the signing of their book, she ended up dying. that someone like committed murder. So then that's when they got involved in their own podcast of trying to solve the murder of Felicia Taylor.
Yeah.
And then throughout that then you go through the whole backstory of them, how they got into the podcast, and the fact that they can't do it separately; they have to do it together, and they go on a bit of a journey between themselves, and they come back and actually solve the crime.
Yeah, and I think this is this is obviously a two people who record a podcast. I mean, I don't know where two people recording a podcast.
I mean,
would be.
could you imagine?
Could you imagine it? Actually, spending time recording a podcast. I mean,
they must be insane.
I don't know why they do these things.
Exactly. Imagine if we solved a murder.
Yeah, or did a podcast.
Or what? Yeah, but imagine if they're doing a podcast about solving a murder and they solve a murder. We're doing a podcast about theatre. Not murder. We're doing about theatre. Imagine if we actually put a show on in the West End.
No, you go steady on that one.
No, that wouldn't happen.
Who knows? I mean, you never say never.
No, never. It wouldn't happen.
But I think...
But imagine if they said, okay, put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
Put a show on.
Yeah. Why not?
Give us the opportunity.
And we'll do it. But no, I think as well, it's quite a sort of moment in time where this is written, where they obviously have been doing a podcast based on murders, and they're probably not live cases, whereas this actually, what happened is they're thrust into the world of actually the murders are happening around them, and it becomes very close to home.
Yes. It's funny that they do a murder mystery, not a murder mystery, but they do a solving a murder crime series podcast, because I do actually follow one. I was just trying to get it up who I do follow. I think it's Crime Junkie I follow. Crime Junkie, and there's another one as well. I can't see it on that one. I suppose it's like here we go. This is it. It's Murder Me on Monday. That's it. That's the podcast I follow.
All right, yeah.
A British-based true crime podcast with Mother and somebody.
Murder with Mother?
Murder Me on Monday.
What about Tuesday?
You get a day off. You get sentenced on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Just brief stabbings on the Wednesday.
Yeah,
but that's in London.
Yeah, just a light strangulation on Thursday.
Yeah. Bag on your head on Friday. It's all over.
Yeah, asphyxiation. That's all you need.
Now then, I've completely digressed now. Let's get back to it.
We went off on a tangent there.
Why not? What do we talk about in this? Put your phone away. Concentrate.
I am.
You're making me forget what we're doing.
We're doing a podcast about Kathy and Stella solving a murder musical.
A new musical theatre?
A new musical comedy.
See, you need to put your teeth in if you're going to be witty. Now, okay, so let's just talk about the writing here, because why not? I felt that... well, I wasn't quite sure. Coming into this theatre, I've been to the Ambassadors Theatre before because I saw Twilight Zone here, and I'm sure I've seen something else here. But anyway, it's the first time I sat at the top.
I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
You probably are. But, oh my God, the seats are so cramped. They really are. For someone who's quite, well, I won't say I was tall, but I've got long legs.
It definitely wasn't designed for the more discerning gentlemen from 2024. It was probably designed for the Victorians, who are very short and small.
Yeah.
Because
horse jockeys. Maybe the top row was just full of horse
True,
jockeys.
yeah,
You never know. But anyway, it was slightly
I can think of
uncomfortable.
some jockeys.
Anyway, pay attention. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought now. Come on. So I wasn't quite sure as to what this was going to be about, because we had a couple of options as to what shows we were going to see before we went to see Starlight Express, because that was the main thing of us being down in London. So then this popped up at a last minute thing. We managed to get some tickets to come and see it, and it would be in a new musical comedy. New comedy musical.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's a new comedy.
It's not just a musical, and it's not just a comedy. It's a comedy musical.
It's both. But having said that, after watching it all the way through, it was like I couldn't fault any of the writing. Everything, all the songs were spot on, perfect.
Exactly.
They had just what it needed. It had the depth, it had the comedy, it had the light tones, it had the backstory going on. Even
Yeah.
in the musical songs, it had everything going on, and
every character was fully realised the way
exactly,
I felt.
even the ones that were doubling up as other
Yeah,
characters.
definitely.
You know, so
It's very specific on each character plot, as in each when that different character walked on stage, you knew who they were and what they were doing.
yes, and with the writing and how they structured it, it did follow a typical pattern of them being together and then each being challenged in their own right, and then drifting apart, finding what really made them tick, and then coming together again. It's a typical storyline plot. But also it needed it for this. Well, it didn't particularly need it for that, but it sort of worked for this because it was about them solving a mystery, and they couldn't particularly do it by themselves.
And it's also a look of when we talk about characterizations, Kathy and Stella are complete polar opposites, as in their outlook on life and the way they operate. They are very different, and they've been naturally drawn together because each one's got different qualities. But it really showed in their performances, and but the writing backed that up. And I think that's the beauty of this production.
And I think it referenced that as to the fact that they have a shared interest, which was the mystery side of anything, really.
Yeah.
Whether it was solving murders or whatever. They had that quizzical nature about them that attracted them to each other in the school grounds to begin with, because they had this scene where they were just sharing books, and that made, if it wasn't for that, their worlds wouldn't have never collided. No. They wouldn't probably be friends, but because they had just that one shared interest,
it was a common like intrigue and interest to, you know, murders and the minds of the psychology of murderers and stuff like that, and they just got lost in that world, and that's, you know, the rest is history almost. They became stronger ever since. So,
and where they had two different type of characters. You had Stella, who was down to earth and slightly droll, sarcastic, told it how it is, but had a bit of a twinkle in her eye. And then you had Kathy, who was very much like a bit mousy, a bit. I think she had the asthma thing, didn't she?
Yeah.
As well, and she was very excited, but very like cautious over things. But she was the planner.
Yeah, she was the geeky one that had a different drive, and but also making sure that they did the episodes and, you know, do all the bits in the background. And
yeah, so they complemented each other quite well there.
Yeah. And I think as well, Stella helped Kathy become more outgoing. She filled those. She encouraged her to be more, find that other side of the character to Kathy, really, to make her more outgoing. Which
is how they managed to form this friendship to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. Because also as well, on the flip side, Kathy gave Stella the calm influence she needed sometimes, where she needed to see reality, you know, rather than, you know, she can be outspoken, but she'd not been challenged, whereas Kathy would challenge Stella on some of her comments or opinions, really.
Okay, so in terms of the whole overall story plot of this one, we've pretty much covered it, and it's all the juicy bits are pretty much the songs.
Yeah, because they are great drivers in the storyline, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes musicals have songs that are almost drift off from one comment, these actually are part of. They're very much part of the driver of the narrative, really, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, and I know, like, a lot of songs do that. It's supposed to be like character or drive the plot, really. But with it being two of them, it sort of does both as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think one of my personal favourites of the songs that they did sing was The Approval of Strangers, because I think it just means so much to everybody. Whether, you know, whatever you're doing, sometimes you do put yourself out there just for the approval of others, you know, and sometimes it's like you could think, was that why we're doing this podcast?
Yeah.
For the approval of others, you know, please subscribe, hint. But it's not. I don't particularly do anything for the approval of strangers. I do it for the approval of myself.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because you've probably not heard it posed that way, and this is, if a song like that can make you think, it's actually quite interesting because we might not have put that focus on that song, but actually it does say quite a lot because, some people might set up a podcast to talk or say stuff, same as having a YouTube channel, or some people do it just for personal gratification rather than actually, my view is the things I do with podcasts is I get to use my voice and talk about productions that I've got an opinion on that I'd like to share my opinion, and I think that's more the reason I do it, and I think Stephen's the same, but it's about using our knowledge of what we've been involved in through our lives, that it's actually quite nice to use that voice that you wouldn't necessarily use anywhere else.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if we just went to a theatre and we saw a show like we normally do, and we just discussed that in a car,
exactly.
Think of how many people are in that audience as well, seeing the same show, but you never get to hear anybody else's viewpoint of that.
No, and something it's quite interesting because what I tend to do is, rather than race to get out of the theatre with the audience as soon as I can, I like to hold back sometimes and just hear other people talk, because I'll hear people say things and I think, oh, it's not. I'm not the only one that says things like that. Or same as the interval, you'll hear people just say certain things and you think it's actually quite nice and rewarding and refreshing to know that I'm not thinking the complete opposite of what other people are in the room. I'm actually we're all on the same wavelength, or we've all seen something like that, and it's quite nice to watch an audience and be observant of that sometimes.
Yeah,
I think as well it's very easy now because entertainment or technology is so readily available. The minute somebody has a break from something, their phone will come out.
Oh my God, yes.
Rather than having an opinion or talking to somebody you're with, it's, I need to check this, or I need to look at that, and I need to make a phone call. Because some people value that time as, it's precious time to catch up with somebody or do business or whatever. It's but you're still within that zone of a production. Just stay in it sometimes. Don't need to.
And how many phones have we seen come out during quite a lot of shows lately? Not just because of the football being on,
exactly.
But at any opportunity they'll have it on and they'll just be scrolling, looking at like Facebook and stuff like that. It's like, why have you come to see a show? To be entertained if you're just gonna see what Julie from down the road's doing with a tea?
Exactly. And one of the other things I would say is I'd like to really ban all digital watches in buildings, because people are checking text messages when they're can't wait, so they're looking at their phone glowing in the middle of the production, and it's like they can't wait until the interval to check their phone, and it's like you really are not going to miss anything. Your life isn't that important that you've got to make sure that one of your friends is commenting on something, or you don't need to see that. Just switch your bloody phone, your watch off as well.
I always put mine on airplane mode because I always get anxiety or frightened that, oh my God, because sometimes I work odd hours, so if my alarm goes off probably about 9:30 or something to wake me up to do a night shift, oh my God, have I turned that off? Is it going to go during a bit of their play? Is my alarm gonna start chiming and stuff like that? It panics me, so I just turn everything down, turn everything off, and I need to be there.
You've got to immerse
for the duration.
Yeah,
exactly. And this play definitely needed everyone's full attention, and you know what? I think it got it. I don't think I saw anybody deviate from looking at the stage. Because it was so fast paced.
It was so fast paced, and that's why we talk about it. Where there's parts of this production where even now I think about it, and that's the good sign of a production. It's like the musical numbers. Just on reflection now, I'd like to sort of ask this to Stephen: is how many musical genres were in the actual songs? Because they weren't all modern genres. It's it's like Kathy and Stella's Murder Podcast. The actual song is quite almost vaudeville, almost Charleston-esque.
I was going to say it's got that kind of a beat to it, and hasn't it? Very early 20s, 30s, something like that.
There's certainly it's fascinating how we're now in 2024 and it still works, and it still has those jingly songs and those sort of things that work really well.
So was there a question there?
Well, it was just that. But it was just that how many we noticed. It's you couldn't pinpoint it to say it was an 80s style production or it was a 70s or a 60s. It just spanned so many eras a little bit. It was.
I think it was definitely a musical that you couldn't pin down because it was sort of like retro music in terms of it like whether you're saying about the Charleston and stuff like that, it alluded to it, but it wasn't set in that period.
No, exactly.
Whereas 42 Balloons, set in the 80s, it had an 80s
all the way through.
So you knew where you were. Whereas this one, it sounded very much like of the now, but with slight echoes of the past.
Yeah.
Like it was making sure it was timeless.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was going with it, because it's like,
was it?
Because you can't pinpoint it, you can't place it and make it date as a production, and the songs stand up on their own as well. And I think when you hear them, you hear them afterwards on their own. You can picture what's happening on stage as well. Almost, you know that they're having fun with it. I just hope they release the full soundtrack, because they need to not just release a few songs.
Yeah, they do. It's crying out for the full soundtrack to be out. What I would also add is, to me, with you saying the cabaret thing, which I was going to mention anyway, it's got lines of fascinating Aida songs coming in here, as if like Dilly Keane had written some. Ironically, or weirdly enough, the lady who played Stella, I felt at times during her acting, had mannerisms of Dilly Keane. How she'd look at an audience, how she'd like scrunch her face up and just be a bit like ironic, or a bit.
Yeah, she certainly welcomed you in to the stage almost.
But also like any eye rolls she gave, it was very much like we're on her side.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the acting now, but it's like she got you feeling like we was on her side, and like this isn't really anything. It's just I'm just here. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And this is who I am, and this is my personality, and you've got to like me, and then I'm not going to change.
Well, and she's not particularly bothered.
Yeah.
Which is quite fun. In terms of the directing now, let's just focus on that for a little.
Yeah.
Because I think this is an excellent musical. The musical score, the lyrics, and the book, and everything was just stunning and brilliant. So let's just talk about the direction of this production.
Yeah, I mean, something I'd note is it's quite interesting, because I think, not all the time, but I think sometimes it's very useful when the writer is obviously heavily involved in the production, because John Britton co-directed this with Fabian Elise, and it sort of shows, because it's a production that had a clear direction obviously from the start, because the set is quite sparse, so it's really key on the characters.
They're doing this in their basement or their garage.
Yeah.
So it was like their father's garage or something, because they had things up on the wall, didn't they? Like bicycles or
there was
spades and shovels.
There was ladders. There was like gardening equipment. There was all sorts of things around. But what I mean by sparse is, normally musicals traditionally would have big set pieces, big this, big that. Everything's. Whereas this, because it's so sparse, you focus on the characters being the colour on stage in the performance, as well as the odd set piece that they use, which we'll talk about. But it was very much about them as characters doing this musical. It's almost street theatre, really, because you could have done this anywhere, and I think that if they'd have lit it well, they could have done it in a warehouse, to have actually had quite a nice feel to it if it had been done in a warehouse as well.
Yeah, in the round or something.
Yeah. But from a directing perspective, that's a very confident thing to do.
There was a lot of chairology in this as well,
really
moving around in swirly chairs.
Yeah.
And I think that was quite fun to see, how they can just be moved about, or they move themselves about, going from A to B, collecting things from off the sides. And it sort of adds a little bit of laziness to their characters, where instead of just getting up to go over to grab something, they just lean or move on a
wheel
swivel
themselves
chair.
across, walked across on the
but it's very much indicative of like office-based
Yeah,
people who just they get comfortable in their chairs.
yeah, they do, and wheel around. And I think as well, though, it didn't feel. It felt quite organic in their movements, and I think it's, and I mean that in the sense of, yes, they would have had direction and they needed to be in certain places, but you didn't feel like. I mean, I noticed that there wasn't really many marks on the floor apart from just marks like you're in a warehouse and there's all scratches and paint and bits and bobs. It might be that was where their marks were done on the paint or on the this, that, and the other, but you felt like it was all them rolling around and moving around and doing this production without restriction almost. I mean, I was surprised those chairs didn't come flying off stage at some points because
my God, there was
flung
a
them on
moment
a
where,
few times, and
yeah,
it's
but
like
there was a
they were
moment where
close to the front.
Yeah, there was a moment where one of them were just like moving them around, so guided it with the back of the chairs.
Yeah.
And one of them got quite close to the very edge of it.
Yeah, and the stage is raked, as in, but it's not raked like it would have been at the Palladium or something like that. So it wouldn't be like throwing a chair down a hill, but at least they did it in the right way. They'd obviously practiced a lot because we'd only seen it. This, just to mention, this was the first full week of its run in London, so we'd seen it. So
was it not the opening night, or was it the?
No, it was the opening night. Was the previous week. It was the opening week. It was the opening week. So we got the Saturday of the opening week, basically.
I love shows which have a bit of a blunt attitude or blunt comedy, things that just happen instantly.
Yeah.
And one particular scene that I really appreciated was when they were talking about the murder of Felicia. She walked off stage confidently, and then before you know it, there was a spark of red light from off stage, and she screamed.
Yeah.
And then they just said, "Oh, that's that. She's been beheaded or something.
Yeah.
She died."
Yeah.
But because it happened so quickly, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. That was so funny. That was so quick. And then she's back on at the other end of it, being like the ghost or something else.
Yeah, she was in the background, apparition. Yeah, and then she's the sister. All of a sudden she's like coming back as the sister with not even any. And I think that was the confidence of this performance. There was moments where they were interspersed with. We were laughing still, but they were throwing another joke at you at the point of, you'd only just took that in, and it was like, here's another one, and we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and it really wrapped it up in so much.
Yeah, it was really fast paced with the direction of this one, and I think they utilised the staging area quite well once they had all the actors on stage as well, because they had some of the actors double up for the parents or the general people in total. So there was always someone coming off and then going off, coming on and going off, and it just seemed quite busy but fluid. There were fluid movements all the way through this, and every scene just seemed to have the correct purpose and the correct way of delivering that message or scene within that space, and how everyone related to everybody else.
Yeah, and I think
in the space.
We've talked about writing and directing, and I think this was another example of how well written this was, and directed. The supporting cast had moments on stage on their own without Stella and Kathy, so there was a few moments where they would explore their characters as part of the production, while Kathy and Stella were doing something else off stage. When it was like, it just helped elevate their characters. So even when they were changing to different characters, you didn't just, it wasn't just always about the main characters. These were fueling more narrative, really.
I personally like the whole build up to them trying to solve this murder of Felicia, and them having to talk. After having interviewed one of the suspects, they were trying to trace everybody else's footsteps and see what could have happened.
Yeah.
And I like the whole build up to them when they went into the morgue. And I think that was in the second act. Because then you had another part of the storyline come through where it was about like a romance one between Kathy.
Yeah, I think the other bit that, I mean, you talked about it earlier about the part in the production where they regress to childhood. And I just thought that scene was really well directed, where they literally went through every year of their sort of childhood up to adulthood, and you got a very quick snapshot into
that was
how they grew up.
That whole scene was really well developed and done. How it started off at, I think, 2004, with a sign being on some swing. Well, in the middle swing, because they both sat on swings to get to know each other, and then they sat on school desks or behind a school desk, and when they lifted the lid off, it had the next year that they were like progressed a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think also to mention all the prop use was, and it wouldn't really does it. This is more of a direction point. All the props were oversized. The desk was oversized. The swings were oversized, so they looked like children.
Yeah.
On stage, and this was in the middle of a bare stage, and you'd got this moment of, the supporting cast for bringing different times in on a bus stop where the actual new date was, or the back of a sofa when they put the rug over it, and that had got the date on it. It was all done really cleverly and really classily. Classily, a new word. But you felt like you were being taken through their childhood, and they were growing up. So gradually, the props and stuff got to normal size towards the end of that growing up period, and I think it's just really sweet, but it did so much in such a short scene. Such a short scene. And I think that's useful to make note of, that it's a small part of production work that actually it's easy to think, well, I haven't got enough time for all those props, or we haven't got time to put them somewhere or hide them, but that needed it.
But when you rely on the other cast members as well to support you in that scene, to tell the story, that's when real acting and real direction, I shouldn't really say real direction or real acting, but that's when it all comes together to help create the scene and be a bit more different and unique and a bit more entertaining, and something that isn't just traditional.
No, and because some scenes where it's just two people sat on wheeled chairs wheeling about, they don't need much direction or blocking, whereas that scene needed a lot of work from the entire cast doing everything right, and it just needs that attention really to get it to where it was.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're
here for the drama.
I would like to give an overall shout out to the two leads in this play, Rebecca Hines as Stella Carmichael and Bronte Barbe as Kathy Baxter.
Totally agree.
I thought they were absolutely fantastic as these characters, holding the show all the way through with their ups and the downs and all the songs that they projected, and not just projected, but they sang. They gave passion all the way through it, even when it came to the heartfelt stuff of them having to realise that they're probably going to lose their friendship, or they're moving away, their life is changing, and then also showing the versatility of them coming back together again and knowing why they're doing this and why they like it. And they were just fantastic performances, and you saw characterizations through them instantly. You got them and you got to like them. Are you going to interject here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just didn't want to cut through.
We normally do.
Oh, no, I normally do. I think for me as well, I totally agree with what you say, and I think as well, you were captivated by them the minute they were on stage, and you knew straight away who they were. It was like you could tell that they were both very different and very that you knew their character almost before they even started talking, because of their mannerisms and the way they held themselves. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen Rebecca Hines before in Oklahoma, and she was the same again. She was.
When did you go to Oklahoma?
When I saw Oklahoma last year in London.
Oh.
And she was in that, and when there's something special about certain people, as in you can just see that there's a sparkle, and they both had that sparkle, and
and not just that. I'd just say that I felt Imelda Warren Green and Hannah Jane Fox they just sparkled as well. So
yeah, totally.
Hannah played Felicia Taylor, but she played so many different variations of Felicia that she just came across as this diva, this fame-hungry sort of this star of the show, really. Even though she wasn't, I think it's just how she held herself, the clothes she wore, the sunglasses she wore as well, and just how she moved around the stage. It was very like confidence and professional. And I don't mean like as a professional actress. I just mean like as a professional character.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that character knew who exactly she was and what she was doing, and she was like loving herself silly, really, on there.
I think, you know, and I think, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, whereas Imelda Warren Green playing Erica Knott, because she played two characters. She played the sister, Frankie Carmichael, and her main role was Erica Knott, this fan obsessed with the podcasts. And just to see her change from the sister to the fan obsessed geek was just incredible.
Yeah.
And the fact that she kept her character all the way through. In fact, that character of Erica just ended up getting more and more extreme, and wound up and pent up, and how she managed to keep laughing as well. She had like her fingers were like pointy and in like a claw thing, and her mouth sort of like moved around to mimic that every time she was laughing, like she was out of breath and really like obsessed.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just wow.
But I think as well, you know, one thing I was going to say, it was clear the cast all knew the script inside out, upside down, backwards, because they were being playful with the production. They were, you could tell they were enjoying it, and it was like not one person was getting in the way of each other, and it all felt really fun. You felt that they were enjoying what they were doing. You felt that they were enjoying delivering their lines. You know that they were ready for the laughs. They were pausing for the laughs and the cheers. And, you know, they knew how to work the audience. And that is something that the cast have to do well. Otherwise, you can throw it away.
Yeah, they definitely played up to the audience, didn't they?
Yeah, but they did it in a way that you really have to understand what the words you're using and what you're saying will cause that. And your actions on stage, and you have to milk it and over-egg it when it's this sort of production. You know, because of that, you've got to enjoy that moment. You've got to lap it up because you've got to let people feel like they've got time to enjoy it. And I think that's another key thing with her. It's another key thing, you know.
It's a key thing
because it's very easy to forget your audience because sometimes.
Especially if you've not brought them in, like you say. If you're just performing to them, like instead of for them, if you know what I mean. No, the other way around. If you're performing for them rather than to them, it has that that boundary there.
Yeah, it's like we saw. I know it's not a musical that we saw, but we saw Noises Off, the recent version of it, and listened to our version of that, the podcast of that review of that, and. It's a key example of where the cast didn't pull out all the funny parts of the production, where we've seen other previous casts do Noises Off, and they did. And it's like you have to really, you know, squeeze out every bit of fun and comedy in a production as much as you can. And it's very interesting to see that this really did that, you know.
It's really nice to see the cast bond and gel so well and be so confident in each other's company.
Yeah.
And when you look back onto YouTube and see the videos of them recording the musical songs, you can see them all having a good time. So they've clearly been with this from the get-go. Well, the majority of them have been with this from the get-go. That is it any wonder they know the play inside out and they know what's happening next? Because there's a lot of scenes going on to lead them to the interval and then to the end, and it's a joy to watch them all interact and perform and know that they are loving this play. They know they're in something magical. And this reminds me of 42 Balloons, another new play where all the cast was quite small. They doubled up apart from the central characters again, and I think this musical is very much similar to 42 Balloons in terms of the whole song, all of the songs, I loved all the way through. They were really like out there, memorable, and I think it was funny and it told the story and it moved it along. And sometimes you don't always get that all the time.
No, and I think songs, you know,
I mean, i.e. Titanic.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Well, what can I say about that? I mean, you can listen to that one as well. But
If you dare.
If you dare. But I think as well, like you say, it's I always wonder, you know, I always think the true test of a musical is if those musical numbers stand up on their own. So you can listen to them without almost seeing the production.
Yeah, without context.
And without context, and they stand up on their own. And I think that's a compliment to the writers. You know, some people write the songs just to go within the play and don't necessarily have their own stamp, whereas these, all of the songs do in this production.
A special mention to the cast of Elliot Broadfoot. He played several characters as well, Justin Norris and Vanessa Baxter. I don't believe he was the original one from the very concept of this. From what I can see, I think there was another actor involved. But he doubled up quite well in his roles of... I mean, it was quite easy to be a female role and then just a male role. But he managed to make them believable and both really fun and energetic. And... as did Ben Redfern playing David Slater. Now, he played suspect number 1 to the first murder of, well, the only murder of Felicia. His character was the victim of who Felicia thought murdered some other people before as well. So he was suspect number 1, and he gave a good portrayal of like a wrongfully convicted murderer.
Yeah.
And what everyone was going for. So he held up quite well there.
Yeah, and they were relatively small parts, really, but they gave them conviction, and you
but
knew...
because they doubled up as well, it helped fill the stage as well.
It did.
And Eliotti Williams and Jaw, she played Detective Inspector Sue Shaw, and she was great as a detective.
Oh, yeah, she was brilliant.
She put them in their place, and also she had a bit of sarcasm about her. You know, and sometimes I was wondering, are these minor characters, these people at the background, are they going to shine? Are they just going to be there like furniture?
Yeah.
But she managed to just have the one character at the focal point, the true detective. And she was just a joy to watch as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it was nice that they all got their individual roles.
And it's also to mention as well in that is... It's like my experience through work and things that I do. I've worked with police officers on and off, and when you speak to them, they're real people. So they do have elements of sarcasm or conversations with you, but they may say that they can do something or can't do something, but sort of enforce the law, shall we say? But they'll still have an element of realism and understanding as that we're all people, and sometimes you need a little bit of a joke or something just to calm the mood a little bit. And it really portrayed that within this, you know, that it's not always the hard line of the law, that people are people, you know, and we understand that.
Well, it's very nice of you to say.
Well, you know.
Cops and costumes. Or props and costumes.
Cops and costumes. Is that like a new game?
It's a new game. Cops and
prostitutes.
Cops and prostitutes. Let's discuss a little of those now, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, everything felt lived in, and I don't.
When you say everything felt lived in, the microphone was a prop. Would you say that was lived in?
No, what I mean is it felt used and not brand new, as in everything felt like it had been sat in. So the chairs they were using felt like they'd been used a lot, and there were the chairs that were used in the recording of the podcast. It wasn't like we'd just thrown some office chairs around that were, you know, there was. It's like the stage blocks at the side that became like other things, and you know, there was a washing machine in the side that we never really used. It never got used for anything, but there was a washing machine there on the stage, and under, like, even if it's just the front panel to look like that, it was enough to just to elevate the set, really. And the same as the steps, one side was covered in cardboard boxes to look like a stack of boxes.
Well, a stack of crisp boxes.
Yeah, crisp boxes, but everything felt right. I mean, there was a few prop moments where they dropped the scenery at the back when it nearly didn't land at the bottom. I did think it was wobbling about and shaking a lot.
Oh, yeah. Was that the bit where they went to MurderCon?
When they went to MurderCon and this big thing dropped down from above and it just started swinging about. And I thought, is it going to get caught on things? And I think there were You know,
'cause it was
wondering
quite
where
a
it came from.
tight gap that they left.
It was,
for them to
there
go
wasn't
on and
much
off.
in between it for it to not gap. But it worked all right. But no, I think
I love the little gestures with the signing off on the podcast with the clinking of the cups of tea
yeah,
together.
definitely.
That was nice. We should have
Yeah.
adopted that.
Yeah, we should have. We did it. Did we do?
We don't. We don't.
We
sign
do. We
off with
stir
cups
the
of
tea.
Yeah, but we don't have the kettle boiling. We don't really. There's nothing really going in that tea. It was very much an empty spoon going around a thing. But no, what I'm saying is like we don't sign off with a cup of tea. You know
Well,
what I
I
mean?
got a cup of tea. It's not there, look. I'm not even drinking tea today.
You have done. In the other episode you did.
Yeah, that's the other episode, not this one.
Anyway.
But no, I think it was nice to have the band on stage and be visible and just part of the chaos, really. They were there. It was just,
They were there.
But it was a nice nod to the fact that this all was live and everybody was involved in it, and I think
It was nice that they had the band in the garage, like a
Yeah.
garage band.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, they didn't have to. They could have had it in the pit.
And it's easy to think, oh well, we don't need, we never use, because sometimes
Where were you going with that little bit there?
I was just going to say, sometimes you have a production where if you don't need it, and I always say this sometimes with theatre, if you don't need it, why is it there? Whereas the fine line is a lot of the set pieces that were hung and fixed on the stage at the back and on the sides were all part of the set dressing rather than a prop. So it was
they
all-
were there to support the fact that it was a garage, because
Yeah.
you could look at that and just think it wasn't a garage.
No, without
Hence, like the washing machine.
Yeah, and nothing was purposely in order, in line, and everything was all haphazard, and it worked really well because it felt,
And also,
felt
when you said about
specific.
as you said about the metal things at the back of when you were describing the set,
Yeah,
they're the metal garage doors.
yeah, they're like the garage door at the back that drops in. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it gives you that view, but then they use that quite cleverly to raise and lower to have different scenes behind it. So like the Murdercon sign was behind it, and things like that then gave them an opportunity to do a scene change, because they could drop the garage door and then put in the map of the murders, and then they could pull that away when the garage door was shut and put another one in there, and it just made it feel smooth and specific, really. And also an entrance for the book signing stand
Thing,
as well.
yeah. In terms of the costume now, I thought the best costume in this was the one Felicia was wearing,
Yeah,
but none when she had those bloody crazy sunglasses. They had like rhinestones all the way around the
Yeah.
edge of it. They were already white, but when the lighting shone on them, they just made it look like a bloody star.
Yeah, they did,
It's
yeah.
so like OTT at
Yeah.
that, and she wore a white suit most of the time.
it was almost Elvis-esque, wasn't it? It was like,
Well, she did portray that character,
Yeah,
didn't she?
she
I'm
did,
sure
yeah.
she did.
yeah.
And then there was another sort of specific costume for Erica. She had one that kind of went all the way through. It was more like an orange jumpsuit, if you think about it.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
It's very like she'd just been released from somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she definitely like come from a secure unit somewhere.
Yeah. And all the costumes pretty much suited the characters that they were playing. There was a
Yeah, I
lot
mean,
of- there was
Kathy and
quite a-
Stella stayed in their costumes, apart from the school moment, really.
Yeah, but I mean, like the costumes pretty much suited their character.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for Kathy, she had like it isn't in the promo. She just got normally like straight wavy hair sort of thing, but she had her hair done in like really tight curls. She
Yeah.
reminded me at the time of Bonnie Langford.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? In
It's like a
Just
grown-up
Leon.
version of Annie as well.
Yeah, yeah, she was very much that, and she had the huge glasses on.
Yeah.
And that's why I say she was a bit of like a little mouse. She was that kind of like wheezing, get your inhaler out.
Yeah, and I think it's well, because that character's so specific now, because they've put her in the
Specific?
the specific.
Word of
because
the day, is it?
yeah, somewhere in the emotion.
In the emotion.
Emotion. No, I think because they've given the glasses and the curly wig, that's really useful when you have got an understudy that's got to take over that character. Because if you just use the original person's ginger hair or whatever, and it hasn't got a specific character, it must help the person who's understudying just step into that role a little bit more because it's so key to the production.
Are you saying the key to the performance is through the locks of golden hair
Yeah.
or auburn hair?
Yeah, because it's very specific and it's more.
Word of the day. Go on.
I think it's more relatable and creates a different character to Stella. It's, Kathy and Stella are very polar opposite, and that helps fuel that. Whereas if they'd both got matched what's on the poster, I can see why they did it. Really,
I want to see the sequel, Kathy and Stella Solve Murder at the Beach or something.
Well, I don't know. They don't
Kathy
need to
and
solve a murder. I think we need
Kathy and Stella go camping.
Go camping, yeah. I think we need, Kathy and Stella go shopping,
Yeah. I think there's got to be a murder involved, because I think that's
that's the
part
thing.
of it, yeah.
And solve a murder. Kathy, Stella go camping and solve a murder.
Yeah, the sequel, Kathy and Stella, Death on the Nile or something like that.
Yeah, it needs to be,
Death on a Blackpool tram
Oh dear.
to Hull and back. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
Not really. No, I think we've done it. We've covered quite a lot.
Right, well, that's that then.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, what the tech is this?
As always, I don't particularly have too much to say on this because I'm not really tech savvy. I can see it and I'm aware of it, but I can't really recall much about it other than there was a lot of red and purple lighting to begin with streaming down onto the set, and I can say that because there's a picture of it I'm looking at.
Yeah. Okay, well, you go steady with your technical knowledge.
I know. And there was also, I remember, a follow spot that followed Felicia about.
Yeah, there was.
And then a red light
Yeah.
when she got slaughtered at the back.
Yeah, and
then that's it. That's me done. I don't know anything else what I can add.
I mean, yet again, it was another fine example of a musical where the blend of the music and the vocals was really done well, and I thought you could hear everything they were singing.
Oh, yes.
And I know it sounds so basic to say that,
No,
but we've
it's-
been to so many productions where they really don't get it right.
It's surprising how many times the female singers are cut off at the beginning of their lines.
I get so fed up of technicians that don't switch the mics on early enough for somebody, and they miss vital parts of their, missing a couple of words. It's horrible, when it's part of their.
It just makes it come across as like a bad production.
Well, yeah, it's part. It's like lighting and sound are another part of another person on stage, but that means the technicians need to understand that, and they need to understand that they're just as integral to the production as the people on stage.
But that's not to say that this happened.
Oh no, this didn't happen in this
There we
production
go.
at all, and they did it really well. And the lighting was very brightly lit. It was very sickly sweet in a good way. Sorry,
If you die on this podcast,
I won't die on this podcast. No, because then we'll have to do a different podcast. You'll have to try and contact me from the other side.
Ouija board.
Yeah. Oh.
What the tech is this?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Oh God! Give you a chicken wing and you're gone.
I'm gone. It's all the bones.
You don't
No,
swallow the bones,
because the set
probably
was
swallow anything.
so dull, like it was so dull. Because the set was so dull and rough around the edges. When you then brightly lit it, it had a certain level of glam. Really, it had a bit.
when you brightly lit it.
Yeah. What I mean is there was a lot of strong colour use,
Yes.
and there was a lot more lights than maybe you would use in a play.
Yes.
This was actually very
overly lit.
and which also made it quite comic, cartoon like, and it fueled that the fun of the production really. And then there was a lot of LED use with things like the Comic Con sign and stuff like that, where they had a lot of the elements of what you'd expect at a technical show. So when you've gone from a dull stage and they're changing it by bringing elements in to make you feel like you've gone to another place, it did feel like that because it was very different to the other production, to the rest of the production. A bit like the Mortuary, that was very clinical and it felt clinical. They brought things in that made it feel they got screens in and video walls, and they use things to make you feel like you've gone somewhere else. And
Which we did it did. Did they have torches at all? Or am I just making that up?
yeah, no, there was a couple of moments with torches.
Was there?
Yeah.
Sometimes my memory plays on me with scenes. Sometimes
Yeah, I
I
know.
think I've seen Erica flash a torch in her face just to give her what's it. But then
Yeah, no, there was.
why would I dream that?
They did use a torch. They did use torches, as can be seen on the poster front.
Oh yes, okay.
So,
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean
but
it's
the
an
poster
stage
does
show.
actually look a bit Scooby Doo.
Exactly.
So so maybe that's why.
I mean, there was a 1950s dining table on the Crucible that we saw, and it never had anything to do with the Crucible that we saw. So
I don't
Programmes
wanna
and
talk, I
posters
don't
don't
want
mean
to talk
anything.
about the Crucible. Thanks. I
that's
get flashbacks.
That's a murder that they could have solved. The murder of the Crucible. Right, are we done here on this one?
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's good. I think that's all I can say.
Say no more.
And now it's time for our Rewind Rewatch.
I would, hands down, love to see the whole of this play again. I'm sure you are in agreement with me.
Totally, 100%.
However, also, if I would have to pick one scene to see again, I think it probably would be the scene where they're on the swings and they're relaying their past childhoods and how they got together again.
I mean, I'd agree with that because it came out of the blue. When I mean that, as in...
It's the start of Act 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was a moment where you thought, oh, it's a bit of a game changer here because we're showing a bit of... Not only is it this, like, a lot of fun, we've actually...
Got a bit of depth.
We've got a lot more depth, and it didn't seem like it was quite deep. The production actually had a lot of depth and a lot of moments like this, but that was almost a gear change, really, when that happened.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say,
Call this a show?
Summary, then. To sum up, Kathy and Stella solve a murder. The new comedy musical.
What is it?
A new comedy musical.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
If you haven't already done so, please like, share and subscribe to our mailing list and to our channels. We are on, I don't know what we're on, YouTube,
Everything.
everything.
Yeah.
If you see us, like us.
What are we doing? Summing up.
Summing up, yeah.
Okay.
Will you wake up, please?
Yeah, but we started talking about that. I just got lost. Well, what can I say? This is a great example of a musical comedy on stage with a committed, brilliant cast. I just hope it goes further, and I hope it tours because I'd love to see it again. It'd be nice and interesting to see what next happens with the actual writers and whatever they write next. I'll be keeping an eye on.
Agreed. I think I will as well. I really want a sequel. I really
No,
do.
They need
I
to
think
just
it'd be
take
great.
our ideas and do it.
Exactly. Just do another sequel of them.
I mean, I do want the soundtrack to be released, the full soundtrack, not
Yeah.
not just 4 songs, because I want to hear the rest now.
Yeah. So to sum up for me, I thought this was thoroughly entertaining, far better than what I assumed it would be. I think it's a great play. I think it's got depth, it's got humour, it's got laughter, it's got so much like sentimentality in there as well. Perfect acting, lovely songs, and overall this is just a wonderful, wonderful show. So what's your favourite musical number? I think I've already said mine, actually. Maybe The Approval of Strangers was the favourite one. I probably might have to see the whole show again just to find my favourite, but I did quite like The Approval of Strangers, as I felt part of the story. I thought that was a good one as well.
Yeah, I think part of the story's mine.
Any particular reason?
I think it's just one of those. It's one of those.
It's just one of those.
Songs that
It's just one of those.
it just works, and I just like it. I just like the.
It just works because it's one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, what more can I say?
It just works.
I like it all. I don't. It's like picking your favourite. Favourite like chocolate bar. You have to eat them all.
We don't have to.
But yeah, but come on.
It's better if you do,
Yeah, of course it is. Always better.
so you end up sick.
Yeah.
And that's the end of this podcast.
And there we are.
Scores then, please, Richard, for Kathy and Stella solve a murder. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being catching the one who done it, and 1 being the show that should have been murdered. What's it going to be?
Well, I can't give it any more, so I've got to give it a 10.
I'll give it 11.
No, you
okay.
can't. Just said that.
I'll give it 10.
I know it feels bad giving it 10, but just give it 10. It's not 9, is it?
10 out of 10, 5 out of 5,
Yeah.
100%.
Everything, yeah.
Everything. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be? Standing ovation.
Standing ovation.
Standing ovation.
Standing ovation. So there we are. That's our discussion of Kathy and Stella solve a murder. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes. If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage, Downstage.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Kathy and Stella solve a murder.
Started
Do we
already,
need
have
to
we?
put a new musical? On today's episode, we'll be discussing Kathy and Stella solve a murder. We saw this production at the Ambassadors Theatre. I'm putting it there. Yeah.
We saw this new musical.
Yeah. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Kathy and Stella solve a murder. We saw this new musical at the Ambassador. We saw this new musical at after sellout runs in Manchester, Bristol. Oh God, sounded all throaty. After sellout runs in Manchester, Bristol, and Edinburgh. What?
Fetch the spoon, I've dropped my biscuit.
Oh no! He's dunked it and he's over dipped.
It's only a jammy wagon wheel. No, it wasn't a wagon wheel at all. What did they call them? Jaffa cakes. Jammy cakes. Jammy biscuits. Jammy Dodgers! You're going to say it now?
No, I just read his headline that just says Putin in, putting in, and it just says Putin in. He just like what? After
Not putting on.
not
putting on the
not
Ritz.
put Putin on the Ritz.
Putin in the Ritz.
He'd be kicked out of the Ritz. After sellout runs in Manchester, Bristol, and Edinburgh, this musical from John Britton and Matthew Floyd Jones, and is co-directed. Yeah, no, it is. After sellout runs in Manchester, Bristol, and Edinburgh. I don't know why I paused. After sellout runs in.
I'm glad you're making all these mistakes. I can eat my biscuit.
That's fine. And is produced by the Multi-Olivier Award winners. And is produced by the Multi-Olivier...
Oh shit, I haven't pressed record.
You know?
You have really, I'm not joking.
Don't do that to me. Can I have a biscuit now?
Yeah, but not while I speak.
There's nothing left.
BFF's Kathy. BFF Kathy. I can't speak. It's my teeth. Need to put them in. These wooden ones. I'm getting splinters.
You also said halls.
Hulls.
Not hull.
Yeah, I know. It's annoying. It's the way my teeth are fixed. They're not.
The way you made up.
La.
Me.
You. Quiet in the studio. Professional speaking here.
Diction, dear, diction.
Enough of your diction.
I got my diction out. Why haven't you got your diction out?
It's coming.
Well, am I too far away?
Why is it I'm like eating my microphone here, and yet
Yeah, but you've put your screens further away, look.
well, it makes no difference. I'm still closer to my mic than you are to that. You can park a car between you and the mic.
And
there.
is it louder than yours?
Yours is louder than mine, yeah.
It's because I project, darling. I talk down to my mic. I don't
Oh, I know.
up to mic. I talk down to mic.
Right.
Right. You ain't seen me. Right.
Right.
You must have that left-handed mic.
I have. Big mic. Anyway. Can we finish this podcast before you start
yes,
choking
we
yourself
can.
to death?
Yes, we can. Because that
And the
all came
morgue.
from the back. Yeah.
The more came from the
Yeah,
the
the
under
morgue
under
came
the
from the back
thing,
as well,
didn't it?
didn't it? Yeah.
No, it came from under the sides, because did they not turn around?
Yeah, they turned around. Yeah.
Don't turn around.
Turn around, see your heart.
No, don't, we might get copyrighted. Catherine, to sum up.
Oh, don't have to just be me then. It's not all about me.
Usually is.
I know.